The things that I share should not bring fear on any of us. They're intended to warn so that we can prepare. As the old saying has it, if you fail to plan, then you've planned to fail. In the United States today, there are approximately $56 trillion, that's American currency, of total debt in the financial system, but there's only about $9 trillion in their bank accounts. Overall, on the planet, there's about $190 trillion of total debt, but global gross domestic product is only about $70 trillion. Something's not quite right here. So we have a house of cards that cannot survive a lot longer. They are going to crash because debt must always be repaid or written off. There's no way the global financial pyramid scheme is going to be able to hold up for too much longer. At some point, it just has to collapse. But when that happens, will you be ready and will you survive it? So I want to point you to a little nation below Turkey there on this map of Europe. It's marked in red. It's called Cyprus. Now, Cyprus had a problem. There was a lot of Russian money and others as well that was stashed there, getting good results. But they had a problem because their system was about to collapse. And their government discussed various ways of addressing this. They closed all the banks one week, and they decided finally that they passed a law through their parliament that said that we will take a share of everybody's bank accounts over a certain balance, and then we will use that to pay off the debts. So it was basically legalized theft of the people. It's called a haircut. The interesting thing is, the same capacity is now available in almost every European nation, all the North American ones, South Africa, India, Australia, New Zealand, and elsewhere. So if a bank fails under this, what they call an open bank resolution, all depositors will have their savings reduced overnight to fund the bank's bailout. Now, in 2008, New Zealand government debt was just over 10 billion. It's now past 60 billion, and it's climbed $27 million every day since our Prime Minister got his job. It already equates to 28% of our economic output, and it's more than $13,000 for every person in New Zealand. Our total national debt, as opposed to government debt, stands at a little over $183 billion, which is almost $42,000 per citizen. But I'm comforted by Joseph in the Bible, who was Egypt's prime minister, and he helped save the people of his time because of righteous leadership, and if ever we needed that, we need it now. Since 1980, the cost price index, which measures inflation and so on, has risen by 425% in New Zealand, and other countries are not dissimilar. But that does not reveal the real extent of inflation or the watering down of our currency and its purchasing power. According to Valuation New Zealand, house prices have risen by almost 1,400% in the same period of a little over 30 years. So, what happens? What causes this problem? When the Treasury prints new banknotes, regardless of the size, the profit is paid over to the Treasury. And the profit is the difference between the cost of printing the physical note and the face value of the note. And it's a little over $100 per taxpayer per year, and it's money that does not have to be collected as taxation. However, cash makes up a very smaller and declining proportion of the money supply. You may not know this, but when banks create money, they and not the government receive the profits. Profits in this case being the interest that can be charged on that money from then on until that debt is repaid. So consequently, by allowing private banks to issue the nation's digital money supply, The government is losing billions every decade. In the last 20 years, on the dates shown, the New Zealand government missed out on 125 billion in currency, in money, which they had to collect as taxation. Now, for a nation of a bit over 4 million people, that's a lot of money. And the conclusion is that significant growth or economic development is almost impossible as long as commercial private banks have a monopoly on the supply of money to the economy. So how much benefit do banks get from creating this money? Well, in 2008, the registered banks in New Zealand made $3.25 billion in profit, while the combined profit of the remainder of the stock exchange, minus the banks, only made $2.9 billion. There's the data. 95% of those profits leave the nation, usually for Australia and others. No wonder their economy was doing better than ours, because they're sucking all the money out of New Zealand. So it's the reason why the average New Zealand adult owes about $97,000, almost 200%, double the average salary. It's also the reason why nearly 17% of the average family income is spent on interest on this debt. It's the major but hidden contributor to problems like poverty, debt, environmental breakdown, economic instability, and other issues. And you need to understand there's a lot of people, not just Christians, who are concerned about these issues, but are feeling powerless. Well, here's the solution. We have a simple solution to these problems. We fix the way banking works, we fix the money, and remove some of the root causes of many other social and economic problems. You need to see how big this debt is. We haven't even got into local government debt, city and district councils. That's unsustainable as well. And this cannot go on for much longer. We're going to have to make sure the government issues the credit, not the private banking monopolies. Now, there are three essential things that we all need: food and water, shelter, such as housing, and social contacts. That's the absolute minimum. You need to pray and ask God for a plan to get yourself out of debt and your family if you're in debt. Pay off all your credit cards. Pay them off every month so they don't ping you with very expensive money. Pay off all your other loans as quickly as you can, and if you've got to sell a few things that you really probably don't need, then do so to get out of debt. Make a choice to never run up credit card debt. It's the most expensive money outside of loan sharks. You may need to go without some non-essentials rather than go into debt at present. Just let what you've got last. And you need to find ways to grow your own food and to store it, because there's nothing as good as food out of your own garden. Now, for some people that's not easy, but for others it's just laziness or ignorance, and we need to overcome these. So, find a way to grow your own food, because there's a day of judgment coming in the financial and economic realm as well. If you want more information on this, both in book and DVD, it's called The Jubilee, The Shemitah, and Surviving the Debt Crisis. And they're both available now and also as an ebook.